And three. So we're on chapter 84, The One-Eyed Giant. I want you to stop the video in just a second and go look up elephant skull. Okay? And when you do, tell me if that doesn't look like a cyclops. I'm a big believer that the mundane explanation is actually what gets us to the supernatural explanation. So the fact that dragons have existed in almost every culture just tells me people found dinosaur bones. The fact that there's this idea of a cyclops, somebody with an eye in the center of their head. Again, go look at the skull. And with tusks coming out of their mouth. They found a mastodon skull. They found an elephant skull. And what they mistook for an ocular cavity is actually the nasal cavity. And the eyes are off on the side because elephants are prey animals. But I think that that's what happened. I love explanations like that, though, because it really does humanize the supernatural. So anyway, let's see. Afterwards, for that whole night, they strained at the oars, and on the following day, they landed. I don't really know a good word for it. They like pulled into port, to the ship to an unknown land. This would be Sicily, by the way. Then. Because they were not knowing the nature, because they didn't know the nature of that place, Ulysses himself, with 12 out of his allies, had set out onto the land. He decided to explore the places. Okay, so he learned his lesson from the Lotus Eaters. Don't just send someone else. But he brought 12 guys, so it's a total of 13 guys. All right. Let's see. Once they had gone up a little ways from the shore, they came to they arrived at a huge cave, which they noticed was being lived in, okay, or was habitable. For the nature, or I'm sorry, for the entrance of it and for they noticed the entrance of it and the For they noticed that the entrance of it had been fortified both by the nature of the place and by hand. So somebody built a really cool door into a mountain, essentially. Soon, even though they knew that they were not acting without danger, they entered into the cave. And when they had done this, they discovered a huge supply of milk in giant jugs. Now, the reason for this is because cyclopses were pastors. And I don't mean like they were all, people who told people that they could gather even though there was a plague. I mean more that they were shepherds. And so shepherds get milk, and they make cheese out of that milk. And that's what these guys found. Basically, cheese. However, while they were wondering who lived in this place, they heard a terrible or a horrible sound. And they, with their eyes turned toward the gate, the opening, the door, they saw a horrible monster. Indeed, it had the appearance and the shape, it had a human appearance and shape, but an enormous size of the body. So it's a normal human, but scaled up quite a bit, right? Moreover, when they had noticed that the monster had only one eye in the front or in the middle of his forehead, placed in the middle of his forehead, they realized that this was one from the Cyclopses, about whom they had received already a great story, or the rumor would be a good way to put it. So they found the Cyclops. Now I have a couple questions for you about Cyclopses. Number one, how many eyebrows do they have? Number two, is it a unibrow? Number three, how can you tell they're blinking or winking? Number four, can they do this? Okay, so that's the Cyclops. They're on Mount Etna. Okay, when Aeneas goes past this, they see this same exact Cyclops. This is Polyphemus. They see him at the top of Mount Etna, howling out. So just kind of a fun thing. And those of you who went with me to Rome, when we closed our eyes at the top of Mount Etna, now you get that joke. All right, I'm gonna hit the button.